come back to you shortly and talk about the primaries in the past week and look ahead to Super Tuesday. But let's bring Woody Brock in on the conversation now. Woody, you've written this new book looking at gridlock. It's been a theme throughout the program today. One of the things that you look at is how, with unemployment remaining stubbornly high in the United States, what you describe as a US Marshall Plan is needed. Big infrastructure spending. What do you envisage? How would this overcome gridlock, and how, because of the gridlock, could it even happen in the first place?
Well, the goal of it is not specifically to overcome gridlock. It will be a byproduct of doing it. We have not put a new roof on the house for 50 years. We in England have the lowest infrastructure maintenance in the world. When that is true, spending money on infrastructure has a very important property. You get a high rate of return on the capital you borrow to do it. As was the case with building the interstate highway system, creating the internet, or the Louisiana Purchase. The crisis today is this, and it's true of Australia. Deficits are in bad repute, correct? Deficits are bad. Sure. Yes. The problem with all of this, the word has no meaning. There is no such thing as a deficit. Good deficits are run up when the government borrows to buy Louisiana, which is all the land west of the Mississippi, or to build the interstate highway system, or to build not bullet trains and all these projects, but the subset of them that are profitable. When you do that, the bond market's happy, because the money that's borrowed is more than paid off. But what we've been doing, and you've been doing, is when you borrow, it is not invested profitably, so that then the deficits become debt in the lap of the grandchildren, who may one day say, hell no, we won't pay. And that's when the bond market, like Italy, will raise rates from 4 to 8%, and Italy will go broke. Do you see the point here?
Yeah.
We need a Marshall Plan. Other countries don't.
So would you say that the stimulus was bad deficit?
Yes, absolutely, and that's widely agreed by everybody. There were lip service to pothole filling. Excuse me, we don't need that. We need electric grids. We need all kinds of it goes way beyond bridges and tunnels and stuff like that.
President Obama also talked about...
He copped out on the whole issue.
Well, he talked about high-speed rail, he talked about airports, all these kinds of things. Didn't get anywhere. What should he have done in your assessment?
I think I share the view of Obama that many people do. He's a very well-intentioned person who is he's a good rhetorician. But when it comes to going to the people and saying, I am your president, I believe we need policies A, B, C, D. If we grant those policies and do it, and I'm going to see with your help that we do it, your kids will live better than you do. If we don't, they'll live worse. But he never does that. It's always leave it up to Congress to do it, and of course nothing gets done, except very partisan policies. So he missed the chance to be the leader that gave us the Marshall Plan, which by any analysis we need.
Do you think in hindsight that if he had just stood up and said, I am the president, etc., that the Republicans would have rolled over and let him do that?
No. What the cynicism I've heard from all of you so far would suggest is that politics is politics and people don't like to agree. Let me tell you, this is wrong. When too many Americans have been living in the back seats of their ever smaller cars, which is going on with a permanent 15% U6 unemployment rate, you're going to reach not this election, but in the next election, people so fed up that both parties that I know will want to the people will want to throw the rascals out. They will be hungry for a win-win solution that does not involve the left beating the right or the right, and you have a majority. That's the hope that I see. There are win-win policies that aren't left or right wing. That's the point of American gridlock in the book.
It took a war and Europe in ruins to lead to agreement on the Marshall Plan. What's it going to take for a US-style Marshall Plan to get that consensus and to get people over the politics?
People like me have to point out that we can afford it. Because you don't want infrastructure that isn't profitable, you only want the infrastructure that is. So the bond market is not an issue. There's masses of money out there. What people don't want is government building roads to nowhere. They want roads to somewhere, correct?
Indeed.
Number one. Number two, a prolonged unemployment rate is going to be very important. As I just said, the prospect is for the U.S. unemployment rate to be far higher than any time in history since the 1930s throughout this decade. That is not good. We don't have a nice welfare state package for unemployed people in America, right? That's another reason. And I just think, third, there's a phenomenon in infrastructure known as going critical, where rather than losing one bridge, one of which recently fell down over the Mississippi River, and maybe it's happened once every 40 years, you lose 10. So by deferring it and deferring it and deferring it, the problems get exponentially worse. I think people are going to be fed up and demand action.
Well, Woody
so
Brock...
I say this, I mean, there's nothing I just said that a conservative who believes in business, which means you don't want to spend government money on negative return projects, but on positive, that's capitalist.
Yeah.
But you put people to work, you make the infrastructure better, which raises productivity. So it's a win-win situation.
OK. Well, Woody Brock, thank you for that, author of American Gridlock. Let's turn back to